Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club, Ben Clatterbuck.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Coffee Experts, thanks for joining us. We are going to talk about a great topic today. You know, we talk about a lot on this show, how you can grow your coffee empire. You know, in fact, I just pushed out an ad this week talking about there are two ways you can grow your coffee empire. That's by growing sales or by cutting your costs. Like those are your two ways. Now that's going to lead to maybe new locations, or maybe the more locations you have, acquiring other businesses. But your sales and your cost of goods are the two levers that are going to really dictate your business. And today we're going to talk about one that's a really big line item, one that is probably your biggest, if not the biggest, very close to the biggest line item that you're selling from. And that is the line item of coffee beans. Ben Clatterbuck, what do you think about coffee beans and the need? You know, what we were talking about just before the show, it's surprising to me how many people haven't started roasting for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, coffee is outside of, I would say it's coffee and milk are your two biggest cogs, right? Um,
Yep.
but one of those you can have a coffee shop with. If you don't have the other one, you can't at all. So if you have no
Hey,
coffee, you're not a coffee shop. You're a milk shop.
sure, milk shop,
You
milk
try
shop.
with no milk. But yeah, it's what you're going to spend your money on the most and the most often. It's good to be aware of what you're buying.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you haven't gotten into roasting yourself, it's also, that's one of those easiest ways to cut out a giant cost. You know, if you're purchasing wholesale, you might get a great wholesale deal, but you get that deal even much better if you're buying green and you're importing green. So, it's the same like when we talk about, making syrups yourself, make your own syrups and sauces. You
Yep.
have the ability to price cut a lot, doing your own energy drink, doing your own frat mix, like
Yep.
cut the middleman out and you can save yourself a lot of money. But right now it's coffee is all over the place.
Yeah. So that was what we want to talk about today. For those of you who haven't realized it, or maybe you're not keeping up with the market the way that we are, because we've got our hands in all these different businesses and we're talking to all these different experts, that there's been a pretty exponential shift in the coffee market as it is going right now. And it's something that you need to be aware of because it's something you're going to probably see whether or not you have a solid P&L that you're running every month, you're going to start feeling it. And obviously we advocate for coffee beans to be part of the cogs that are above the line. You know what I mean? How much money are we bringing in? What are the cost of goods that it took to make that money? And then south of the line from that place of profit, then we start looking at, okay, our liabilities, how's it lining up south of the line? So
Yep. Yep. And I've been talking with Cody and he's been on the show here plenty of times. And, he runs his own roastery, Houdini Coffee Roasters. And he's saying this is the highest he's ever seen green coffee. It's up, almost more than 60% than what we were paying for it back in the, our days of roasters coffee, which is pretty insane for a 60% jump in cost in, 5 years. That's a lot to swallow.
yeah,
Um,
for sure it
so
is.
if you don't have a plan in place on how to mitigate that cost, it could be really difficult.
Yeah. I think as in anything, right? Like we're trying to control as many of the cards as we can control, right? We're trying to keep our hand on the sticks as much as we can to shift and to shuffle. But something like coffee is a really tough one, right? The only way that you can keep your hand on that stick as tight as possible is to begin roasting for yourself, right? Because otherwise you're always going to be dictated by the middleman who's always going to be affected by the grower, right? So the grower And then however it comes into the States, and I know for us, like Company Dos Mayas, we have this amazing gift of having a grower that's growing right there in Belize. And like the cost of what they bring it to us roasted is so much more incredibly low than we could get it anywhere else, which is amazing. But I know a lot of the cost of bringing green or bringing roasted into the States is, the USDA has to rubber stamp wherever that's coming out of. They don't just bring in any old green beans. I mean, like that has to go through a pretty rigorous process before we're going to allow them to be served in the United States to citizens. Right. And so the people that have gone through that, there's a lot of cost that goes into it that then gets passed on to people here. And if it's, let's say, a roaster here that's roasting your beans presently, well, they're going to feel that cost in green that's coming across to them. And then obviously they've got to tack on whatever the cost of their equipment and their labor is to turn that green into roasted and then to ship it to you. So I think that wherever you're at in the pipeline, you're going to feel a lift in COGS. And I would say as much as you can, try and get your hand on the control as quickly as possible.
Yep. Yeah. That's not even to speak to, the costs it takes for, shipping of the beans out of those countries. Energy
Mm.
costs are so high right now. There's a lot of talk in the world right now of tariffs that we're going to put on a bunch of other countries. How's that going to affect it?
Yeah.
They're showing coffee prices, Arabica coffee prices that are for green coffee are going about $4.20 a pound for green coffee. That's not even roasted or anything. That's going to be a huge cost to you as a coffee shop if you're not roasting yourself. That's good. That because they're not going to eat that cost. That's going to get handed down, and which in turn you're going to have to hand down to your customer in the form of increased prices. So as much as you can, like you say, get ahead of the game with roasting yourself. At least you've got a little bit of control there to cut down those costs. But it's not easy. It's a big decision to make. You have to look into, how am I going to get into roasting? How do I roast? Where do I learn to roast? What kind of roaster do I buy?
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. So I would say, like, so we've got a coffee client that is a very dear friend of ours who has recently had to shift to supplying their beans from somebody else. Even though they were a roaster for themselves, they had to ship back out of it because freight was getting super expensive and sending coffee all over the US was getting really expensive. So they began to determine, are there roasters in a locale that might be able to not be as cheap as we are, but be pretty close. And so we decided on going with a local roaster to this particular chain because their pricing wasn't hugely different. Still a few dollars more per pound, right? But at the same time was, something that was still doable. But I think that the trick was, I just got a call from that local roaster who just said, "Hey, I hate to do this, but just like you said, Ben, like prices are going up. I'm going to have to raise my price. Our cost is going up. I'm going to have to extend that on to you," which is, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the best way to look at it is how we always talk about it getting into your own energy drink and frat mix. There's a big upfront cost, but what that cost gives you is control down the
That's
line.
right. That's
And
right.
you might not be able to control the green coffee pricing, but there's a big chunk of everything else that you can control. It's just taking that step of like, okay, I need to make this initial large investment. I need to be able to learn how to roast, which it was obviously daunting for a lot of coffee shop owners. But the peace of mind is okay, but yeah, now I can really control my costs. Now I'm not like at the whim of a middleman, who's importing coffee from Brazil.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been talking to that same entity, and he's been looking at used roasters that we can purchase, put into a small 500 square foot building here. You know what I mean? That we can then look for somebody that we could hire that could come alongside of us, that could be a partner with us and begin to roast. And I know we have other clients like that too, who actually decided, hey, I'm actually going to purchase two different businesses. One's going to be my coffee shop. The other one's going to be my roaster, which I would always say do them in two different, right? In case you want to end up selling one off, it's not going to
Mhm.
collateralize the other. Then you can then control how much volume you're getting from green and it puts it straight into your stand. So I think that you can always find somebody that can train you how to roast or train somebody on your team how to roast. And I would just say, once you get to a spot where you have two or three locations and the thing's humming along, you probably got good management in place, maybe considering putting a area manager, a regional manager, a multiple store manager over those 3 to 4 stores, then you can move into that thought of how can I drop my costs? A lot of people I think next, well, next let's do another location and next another location after that. But what I really appreciated about Wes was when he hit store number 5, he said, "Hey, let's do a roastery." Cause I think that we really need to do that next. He was roasting beans out of his garage with some rickety old roaster, and he ended up putting more money into a higher caliber one. So then that roaster could be making him money night and day. And then they began roasting not only just for roasters, and then began roasting for the college and roasting
Mhm.
for churches around him and roasting for other coffee shop businesses through this second entity called Resilient Roasters, which I felt like was a brilliant idea for him.
Yeah, yeah, you open up that whole wholesale door to people who haven't made the decision like you've made yet, because that is how the coffee industry always works. Like, there will always be, coffee shop owners who are reluctant to get into roasting themselves, or who maybe just never want to. They're like, "I have no desire to do that whatsoever. Cost
Yep.
isn't a concern to me. I don't care. I don't wanna roast." So you'll always have customers in that aspect. And wholesale, especially if you can get to, how can we get into like a grocery store or our local supermarket? Then again, you've opened up the doors to, another profit stream where you don't have to rely solely on, okay, if for the life of me, I don't want to raise prices on my customers, but I know the cost is going up. Can I mitigate that with the amount of retail coffee I'm selling in the store? Can I
Right.
maybe price on my retail bags in a store somewhere versus my own customers at the drive-through? There's just a whole array of options you don't have if you never walk through that door.
Yep. And you leave yourself always open to fluctuation market, right?
Mhm.
Fluctuation outside of your control. Because let's say you don't want to continue on with the roasters providing you beans because you feel like they've gotten really too expensive. Well, now you need to be able to go to a different roaster and make sure they can match your profile in a way that your customers aren't going to be able to notice, right? So all the way through there, you begin to mess with the other side of your business that maybe has been really successful, but it's rooting back to something that's outside of your controls. Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it. And you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee. And it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there. So I would say, well, no matter what it is, let's just acknowledge there are different phases of business. If you're in one or two locations right now, it's probably not the time to be looking at a roastery, right? Like let's get you out to at least three locations so that not all of your income is collateralized by one or two store success. Like let's spread that out a little bit. And then from there, then let's begin to look at what are some costs I can cut, So like what we offer with Indie Coffee Coalition, you know what I mean? Where, hey, we recognize frap and energy drinks are probably two of your biggest costs. You could go out and buy a truckload of your own, but it's a lot of money to sink into one line item. Why don't you come join the coalition, join other small little indies, all of us together, and let's all cut down our costs by all of us going in on a large batch and then splitting it between all of us. Like that's a good step the right direction. I would say like look for the best deal you can get on roasting as long as you can until you need to make that next step. And then realize you don't have to be the expert as the owner. Find an expert person that you can hire and bring in because very likely you're going to be able to produce it for less than that roaster that you're currently paying. And now you've created another business, a separate business from your drive-through coffee shop. So be thinking about how you can be smart in spreading out your liability and your vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I mean, and if you've got those, 3, 4, 5 locations, guaranteed you've got that future roaster working in one of your shops right now. But we did,
Yeah.
Cody was a barista of mine that I've managed, and he was more interested in tech and working on the machines and roasting coffee. And it opened up an avenue for him to be able to grow with the company. So I think don't ever turn down ways for you to be able to grow your people in your company as well, because it just makes your business that much more solidified when it comes to being a part of the community, when you're able to take baristas and give them, large, well-paying jobs in the future.
I think it really comes back to Ben. We talk about a lot on this show, the whole idea of delegate and elevate, and how the only way you as an owner are going to be able to ascend to the full value you bring your company is when you make sure you delegate down things that no longer require your brilliance. And we've got a great tool. We'd love to share it with you. It comes from the EOS library of No, it's called the Delegate and Elevate EOS, just Entrepreneur's Operating System. You can find it out there on your own. We've just kind of made it a little bit like fillable PDF. We would love to give it to you as a gift. You can just drop in any of our socials, Delegate and Elevate. We'd love to send that to you for free. But I would say go through an exercise where you're able to pull up and ask yourself, what is it that I love and I'm great at? And then how do I live there? Right. And the next quadrant is what am I good at and I like? Then there's another quadrant that's what do I dislike, but I'm still good at it, right? There's always going to be some of that in all of our jobs, right? Where maybe we don't love it, but we're probably still the best one at it. And then the final quadrant is what do I dislike and I'm not good at? And get this off your plate as quickly as possible. And realize also, if you're working hours behind the bar, like I would say, how do you get that off? That doesn't require your brilliance anymore. How can you train somebody down? Because there's a lot of things as an owner that nobody else can do but you. And working customer facing isn't always the best place for that. Doesn't mean you can't still be around. That doesn't mean you don't still come through and glad hand all of your people. That doesn't mean that you're not so really focused on reviews and quality and all the things that are important to you. But if you lock yourself up behind the register, if you lock yourself up behind your La Marzocco machine, like the downside is going to be, is you're going to limit your ability to grow.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, we've seen it time and time again, right? Owners who are stressed out because the business isn't growing or they're stressed out about finances and they can't do anything about it for the first 6 hours of the day because they're on bar.
That's right.
While they're on bar, they're stressing out about their finances. And that's, being portrayed to the customer. So get off bar as quickly as you can. Get behind a roaster if you can, or if you
Yeah.
absolutely
Right.
don't want to do that, find the handiest kid in your shop currently, the guy who's always the one to be able to fix things, throw him behind a roaster because he'll
Yeah.
probably pick it up pretty quickly. And you've got yourself a new roaster. You're doing your own coffee and you're covering your costs.
I talk about it a lot, especially on my first drive through coffee on our masterclass. I talk about it. I spend the whole first day really diving into it, but how the first business that I purchased, the first business that I started, I didn't purchase, I started it myself. Um, I did not love the advice of my attorney who was setting up my LLC documents back before you could do it online and do it for cheap. I paid an attorney to do it. And I said, hey, what do you think of this business model? I've been running this business for a long time. I understand the ins and outs. I understand the finances. I understand all the different pieces of it. What do you think about me, going out on my own and doing this for myself? And he said, I'd feel a whole lot better if you were hiring somebody to do it instead of me having to
Yep.
be the one behind the bar, me having to be the one that was trying to do it myself. And I hated that answer. And I still see the resistance when I talk to coffee shop owners now. When they resist, I feel the resistance. They don't like it, but I promise you the only way you can scale is if you can replicate yourself. And the way that you can replicate yourself is sure, work behind the bar, sure, get to a place of mastery with your machines, SOP out, create a handbook of what that's supposed to look like for other people as they replicate mini you. And then just like Ben said, maybe shift over to roasting. And maybe that's the next thing that you SOP out. Maybe that's the next thing that you create the template for and create a guideline for, and then hand that off and continue to grow businesses.
Yep. Yep. And all the while, you're only benefiting your cogs, you're benefiting growing your team, and you're benefiting solidifying your company as a community player. All of these things, they're big steps to make, but they're big steps to make if you want to be a big player. You, you don't see too many large coffee shops. You don't see too many Black Rocks that don't roast their own coffee. That's
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
They don't carry their own energy drink or their own frat mix. That's for reasons because that's where the huge cost controls are. I mean, if you go out and buy a dairy farm, I'd say go do that too. Then you control your milk,
That's right.
every aspect of it.
Man, I'll
Um,
tell you. Yeah.
but those cost controls are so vitally important if you want to become a big player. If you want to stick to just one or two shops, that's great, no problem. This is probably something you don't have to worry about then. But if you want to get to that 5, 10, 15, 25, 50 locations, you can only do that by taking large steps in that direction of controlling your own costs.
And I would say probably the way that you dictate that is you answer the question. What is it that you want to be doing with your time?
Yeah.
Some people, maybe the way that they want to use their time is they want to be a key player behind the bar. They want to be a key face that people see, and that's fine. Just realize that is a limiter. Like, so that by making that decision, you are deciding you're not going to scale because you can't do both. And that's okay. Just realize that's part of your business model. I think that for us, though, we're always going to advocate for you to at least get free enough of it that you can make those choices, that your business doesn't live and die on your back, that you're able to take vacations, that you're able to get days off, that you're able to get to a place where your phone isn't continually being rang or you're not being continually
Yeah.
blown up by text because you didn't buy a business then. You didn't create a business then. You bought yourself a job. You know what I mean? And then just be honest with yourself on, is this what you want to be using your time for? Or can we create a little bit of financial freedom for you so that you don't have to be locked down to this thing day in and day out?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to be a barista until you retire? Or do you want to be able to retire earlier and, have a bunch of baristas run your shop? That's really what you have to determine.
And realize you're going to trade one pain for the other, right? Like, yes, you'll get
Yep.
out of it,
Yep.
but the more that you multiply, for sure, you're right. Like, we all know kids running coffee shops, like there's drama that comes with that, right? So the number of coffee shops you have, there's more drama multiplied. Ben can tell you that firsthand. 15 locations, like you're going to get plenty of teenage drama that comes out of that. But let me tell you what, Wes was removed from that because Ben was the one that was handling that. And so
Yeah.
that's all part of it, is you're going to have to put people in play. And yeah, there are stresses that come with that. And I don't want to minimize those, but it does release you from having to day in, day out, be the one that has to be there at 4:30 to be able to be open by 5, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. I don't miss waking up at 3:45 in the morning anymore. That's for sure.
Man, that's a younger man's job, man.
That is
That's
a
a younger man's job.
job.
Now I know little Linnea keeps you running for your money though at 4 or 5 in the morning. So
Right.
don't try and convince us otherwise on that. But how cool is it that you get to work from home, have your little with you, get to do customer calls? Like, I think you've created the life that you want, and you should be like proud of that. I think it's an amazing thing that you've created for yourself there. Anyway, man, good conversation. For those of you who have questions about COGS, we have a great couple episodes on cost of goods. Coffee Experts Academy, we deep dive into that for a full month of how you should be evaluating your costs, how you should be looking at your P&Ls, ways you can control your menu. I think that, Ben, you did a great job, and we gave a great tool. Coffee Experts Academy, we give free tools with every tier that you climb, level 1, level 2, level 3, and we break it all out for you. If you haven't checked that out, coffeeexpertsacademy.com. Definitely check that out. It's definitely worth the time. But thank you, Coffee Experts, for joining us. Ben, thanks for being the man. Drew flaked on us today, got stuck talking about getting stuck underneath machines, got stuck in a broken grinder. So anyway, if you missed Drew, he'll be back next week. Ben, thanks for your time today, brother.
Yes, sir. We'll see you guys later.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.